how grateful we are to have you with us today. Hopeful Creation is an interfaith network of individuals and congregations who are working to encourage creation care and support faith-based action on climate change in Kalamazoo and Southwest Michigan. We are an affiliate of Michigan Interfaith Power and Light and super grateful to be part of their network. My job today is to first of all, move the slides along so that you can see, here's a little bit of information about Hope for Creation. Again, I mentioned we're going to skip over this part pretty quickly today, but congregations who are part of Hope for Creation are actively engaged in the work of speaking about creation care, using resources wisely, raising their voices together, and giving time, talents, and treasure as they are able. You can see here some of the priority areas that Hope for Creation is focusing on in 2021. And you can see here who our two featured speakers are today. So our plan is to give Steve Bertman about 15 minutes to talk with you first about electric vehicle charging stations. Then we'll take about 10 minutes for questions. And then we'll invite Rick Welch to share with you information about the possibility of polystyrene recycling in Kalamazoo. I'm going to give Rick just a little heads up that there is one slide in between Rick and Steve's presentation that I will hop in and share before he gets started. So with that being the case, I'm going to invite Steve to unmute and we will go ahead and get started.
Okay, thanks, Joan. Let's see if I can stay within the 15-minute limit. That might be the tall order. Yeah, my colleague Paul Pancella is here. He's just volunteered to be the timekeeper. Paul knows way more about electric vehicles than I do, so he's here to answer more questions and correct any mistakes that I make. So if I could have the next slide. I just want to start by promoting the idea of electric vehicles. Before we get into the charging station part, I guess we know that this is just an effort that is being spearheaded by Hope for Creation, but each congregation or each house of worship will work on their own. And the biggest reason for me to switch to electric vehicles is the impact that it can have on mitigating climate change. And there are studies in the literature that show that for personal behavior, the two most effective choices that people can make are one, to eat a plant-based diet, and the other is to not drive a car, or if you drive a car, drive one that has the lowest possible carbon footprint. And that is electric vehicles certainly have the potential, depending on where the electricity comes from. But even with an ordinary power station, electric vehicles have some advantages. First of all, there are no tailpipe emissions, so there's no local pollution. And then they are inherently much more efficient than any internal combustion engine driven car. And so when paired with electricity generated by solar or wind, electric vehicles have the potential of providing personal transportation with very small carbon footprint. So electric vehicles are going to become a much larger part of the passenger fleet. I imagine that at least some of you are here on this call because you've seen articles. Globally, electric vehicle sales have jumped from less than 500,000 in 2015 to 2.1 million in 2019. in the United States, so that first bullet is global statistics. In the United States, there are currently 52 models of cars that are currently available on the market that you can go to purchase. Some of the more popular ones I show with pictures down below. The range of these cars on a full charge, not uncommon to have approximately 250 miles, which can get you to Ann Arbor and back, certainly. And in addition to, you know, the benefits for climate change, which is the reason that Hope for Creation is interested in this, EVs have other advantages. They are extremely quiet. They have almost instantaneous torque, and they are just a whole lot of fun to drive. And they are so much simpler than an internal combustion engine car. No exhaust system, no cooling system, no oil system, very much lower maintenance. So here's a graph that shows what the current prediction of where electric vehicles are going to be in another 2 decades. By 2040, it's predicted that electric vehicles, so battery electric vehicles, BEVs, are the light blue columns, bars. By 2040, 50% of the passenger fleet is predicted to be electric vehicles. We are at the very beginning of an exponential growth, which we're going to start to see. This growth is limited, in this country at least, by 3 major concerns. First, the cost. Electric vehicles currently cost slightly more than similar sized internal combustion engine cars. But that's in part because of the price of batteries, which are dropping, and in part because of just the number of these cars that are produced. And as we can take advantage of economies of scale, the costs of these cars are going to come into alignment. The second limitation is range, and I just mentioned that modern cars, the 2021 cars, have decent range, still smaller than a tank of gas in an internal combustion engine, but I think that's going to change pretty rapidly over the near term. And the third limitation is the availability of charging. So there are gas stations on every corner. There isn't a charging station for electric vehicles on every corner, but that network is growing, and that's the point of this whole project. So on the next slide, I'm showing a recent graph of the number of electric vehicle chargers in each state, per capita, essentially. And it took me a long time actually to find Michigan. I kept looking at the top, thinking that we're in the auto state, we'll be up near the top, but no, we're actually in the bottom third in terms of the number of charging stations per capita. So there's a lot of room for growth of the charging network. Here's a current map of the charging stations that are at least publicly available. There are way more now than there were a couple of years ago, but you can see there's lots of parts of the region that don't have any public charging stations. So there's room for growth of these charging stations. And so before I get into the nuts and bolts, I just wanted to educate people who haven't looked into this, that there are basically 3 charging level options for a charging station. The first level is just plugging your car into a home 110 outlet. This is the slowest charging. You get 4 to 5 miles typically per hour of charging. So if you charge your car overnight, you'll get about 50 miles of range. The level 2 chargers use a 240 volt outlet and can charge at the rate of about 20 to 30 miles of range per hour of charging. So you can get 300 miles of range overnight on a level 2 charger, about 5 or 6 times what a level 1. Level 3 is referred to as DC fast charging, which is way faster. You can get about 200 miles of range in an hour. These, can we go back just for a sec? Is it possible to go back? These level 3 chargers are the most rare so far. They're way more expensive than the level 2 chargers. So next slide. The Consumers Energy has a program called Power My Drive, which is a rebate incentive to facilitate the installation of level 2 and fast DC chargers, or level 3 chargers, on residential and commercial properties. They are really actively trying to incentivize the construction or the development of these charging networks. And here's a snapshot of the program. They will, for level 2 chargers, so a fast DC charger will cost anywhere some $30,000 to $50,000, out of the range of most individuals. Level 2 chargers, though, that'll give you 300 miles overnight, 300-mile range overnight, are within our range. And so Consumers Energy will provide a $5,000 rebate that will cover the cost of the equipment, the installation, and the subscription fees for software. Of course, they're available only to Consumers Energy customers. Each congregation or house of worship must install 2 level 2 charging lines to be eligible for the rebate, and must choose from an approved list of chargers. Basically, there are 2 companies, ChargePoint and NLX are the 2 companies that you can choose from. And you have to be connected to the internet so that consumers can get data. With the software, you can set pricing and access and control. So you can decide who can use the charging station and how much they pay for it, if anything. It's totally up to the owner of the charging stations. And this is important, I think, that you can apply for the rebate before you install anything. So, and you have 6 months to install before they will cancel your rebate. So if you're interested, or you're thinking that you're interested, I think my suggestion is to apply as soon as you can. Okay, why would a house of worship install a charging station? Here's where I sort of proselytize a little bit. I think that acting on to mitigate climate change is putting our faith values into action. And charging stations are a public symbol, a public sign that we intend to do that. We intend to put Earth Care into action. It's a visible statement about the importance of reducing our carbon footprint, and it'll help build this electric vehicle charging infrastructure that is so needed. We'll provide a service to the members of your congregation, and potentially attract new members. And we'll be providing a service to the wider community by building this network. Why work through Hope for Creation? I have been talking with the organizers at Consumers Energy and the manufacturers of the equipment. They will give us a significant discount on the equipment. I think that we can develop as a consortium consistent messaging through signage that will go not just how to use the charging station, but the advantage of electric vehicles for taking care of the planet. And I would like to get some PR for this about what Kalamazoo is doing, what the faith community in Kalamazoo is doing to help steward the earth. All right, so this is the slide now that probably you've been waiting for. This is my recommended configuration and the costs. So I'm suggesting the NLX equipment is a third of the price of the charge point equipment. NL is I just learned this, is the 89th largest company in the world. And they have a huge presence in Europe and have just relatively recently come to the United States. They do more than just charging equipment. They are, in fact, the electricity provider for the entire country of Italy and Spain, I think. Anyhow, my suggestion is to go with the relatively less expensive unit, the JuiceBox Pro 40C, a 40 amp charger. You need to buy 2 of them for a total cost of $2,838. With the discount that they're offering, that's $1,845. There's a pedestal mount to mount these two that with discount is about $400. Installation is going to be very specific to each installation site. I've gotten a couple of quotes and I put a range, ballpark range. Could be higher, could be lower than this, but somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000 you can expect for installation. The subscription cost for the software, $120 per port per year for 3 years. At a discount is $360. So total, before the rebate and before the discount, to install 2 chargers at your house of worship is about $7,000. With the rebate and the discount that I have gotten, total cost at the high end, that is $3,000 for installation, is $605. So very reasonable, inexpensive cost to install these chargers and be part of the future movement of electric vehicles in this country. So here's, if you're interested in this, this is what you would do. First, apply for that rebate to Consumers Energy. You put in your name and your address, and you know, that's pretty much it. You tell them what kind of business you are and so on and so forth. Decide on the configuration. You can go with my recommendation or choose your own. It's up to you. Get an estimate for installation. Again, it's going to vary from site to site. Once you've decided that you want to go forward and you have a configuration, I'd like you to send a request for a quote to NLX through me. So let me know what you want to go with, and I will contact the salesman I've been working with and to make sure that we get the discount that he's promised me. Then go ahead and install a charger, and finally let Consumers Energy know that you've done this. Send them the receipt and they will send the rebate check. Here are some relevant links. We don't have to talk about them. They'll be in the file that the slides that you can download. And that's basically it. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about how, why do this, how do this, and when, maybe.
Thanks, Steve. We have about 7 minutes for questions, and if people want to just unmute themselves and ask, maybe you can start by telling us your name and if you're connected to a congregation here in town.
This is Dave Reinhold from Prince of Peace Lutheran Church in Portage. And Steve, I got a couple of questions with the cost.
Okay.
When you talked about the ENLX discount, is that the 25 to 30% that you showed in the previous slide?
Yeah. So they just yesterday I got it broken down per piece of the pie. So it's on average about 35% discount, but they're giving us more discount on the price of the software than on the pedestal. But yeah, it's about a 35% discount.
So how does that work if you need 20 units? If there's, and first of all, is a unit one installation of 2 lines, or if you get 2 lines, is that 2 units? I'm not sure what a unit is.
Yeah. That's a unit. They started to backpedal on the need for 20 units. So I think that we can go ahead and assume that we can get that discount, no matter how many units we have.
Okay, because that was the question I had, is if I introduce this to the congregation, they're going to want to know what the final price is, and
Right, of course.
and you know,
Consumer-
I don't want to say we're getting the discount if we have to get a certain range to get the discount.
Right. So
Consumers requires you to get 2 units at your site.
right.
Okay, so the 2 lines are 2 units.
To get the rebate.
So we need 10 installations basically to get to the 20 units if we had to do that. Thanks, Paul. That helps.
I'm just gonna let you know, Steve, that Molly Williams is asking in the chat about the timeline for deciding to do this through Hope for Creation.
Yeah, great. Molly, thanks for the question, Molly. This rebate program is technically a pilot program from consumers. They're trying to figure out if this is an effective way of building the network. And so they initially set aside a finite number of rebates. You know, they could be gone any day now. So I think that if you're thinking about doing it again, you have 6 months to do the installation. So my suggestion is fill out an application today to get in the queue. And then you have 6 months to decide on the configuration and put in the order to buy the equipment. I think that they won't give the rebate until the whole thing is installed. And so, you know, you can buy the equipment and get estimates in parallel. I should. There is a company in Michigan that is partnered with NLX to do installation. And I can provide that contact information if you want to call them and get an estimate for installation. I also have worked with a local electrical company to give an estimate, and they would be happy to come and do that as well. So if you're interested, I guess at this point, send me an email directly, and I'll provide that information for you.
Steve,
So put your email in the chat.
Okay.
Steve, Tom Hackley from People's Church. So our building is set way back from the road on 10th Street. And I'm wondering about locations of the hookups, and is it separately metered? Do we have to go to the service entrance at the building, or can it be put out at the street?
Yeah, so that's really a question for your installer. I mean, what you're going to need is a new circuit, at least one 50 amp circuit for a 40 amp charger. Where you run that circuit is pretty much up to you. If you run it, you know, from your building to 10th Street, you know, you have to trench through 200 feet of asphalt. That'll get kind of pricey. So where you locate the charger, to a certain extent, is going to be determined by where is your electrical service and and how far away you want it to be from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Steve. Do you know if it's separately metered or is it run off of your existing meter?
No, I mean, I guess that's up to you. You could put it on a separate meter. Consumers won't do it.
It's not required to be on a separate meter.
Right.
They'll get all the data they need from the little box.
I'm Marty Haug, also from Prince of Peace. I have a question about then you get it all installed and then you use it. So do you have any data on like what it costs to charge overnight? Like,
Yeah, so I can tell you from my car, my car has a battery capacity of 66 kilowatt hours, and the sort of average price for a long time is somewhere between 12 and 13 cents a kilowatt hour. So you're talking about from a zero charge to full charge, maybe $8. Paul can probably tell you more about the cost, the cost benefit differential.
The charger itself will only deliver about 7.5 kilowatts. So for every hour, multiply every hour that a car is hooked up, multiply 7.5 by your rate, whatever your rate is for paying for electricity.
so then let's say so then if you don't charge the general public and you open it to how do people access it? Like someone's driving by and then is there a card system or?
Right. Yeah, everyone who uses it has to have an account with NLX. And then when they get to the station, they swipe their card, or they scan a QR code. And then the station communicates with NLX to authenticate. So really all of the communication is with the company of the charger and not with the house of worship, not with the congregation.
So if I have an account with NLX and I stop at Prince of Peace to fill up or whatever you want to call it, then the church doesn't get charged. My account gets charged. It uses Prince of Peace's electricity. And then Prince of Peace gets a credit and the charge is forwarded to the user?
That's right. The user gets charged, and then my understanding is NLX then pays the church for the energy used.
Okay, we have time for just one more question now, and then we will, Steve's going to stay around though, so there'll be perhaps additional questions later. Anybody have one more burning question before we move to our second presentation?
I have a really short one. Rick Welch here. What would be the estimated installation cost, Steve? Do you have an idea of that?
Yeah, again, that's going to depend on the specific siting configuration, but I think a reasonable, so for a relatively straightforward installation, $2,000 to $3,000, basically, yeah, I think is a reasonable estimate. If again you want to trench across 200 feet of asphalt, it's going to be a little bit more expensive.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Steve, for that really helpful and specific introduction. And thank you for sharing your email address and being willing to be available. One of the things that Hope for Creation is most excited about is this opportunity every month to connect with folks who are building green teams in their congregations. So we're going to transition now from thinking about electric vehicles to thinking about polystyrene recycling. And whoops, I went too quickly there. But what I would like to do before we talk about recycling is just take a minute to talk with you about the stream and Hope for Creation is really committed to recycling as part of a more comprehensive campaign to actually reduce the use of polystyrene. And so we wanted to make sure that you saw this list of ways that you can reduce polystyrene before we move into the opportunity for Rick to share with you about the exciting new opportunity that's coming our way to recycle it. And again, this will be included in the slides if you want to download them. And we can also send this to you in a format that will allow you to share it with your congregation. So with that, I am going to move to the next slide and invite Rick Welch from First Congregational Church to share with us his presentation. And everyone else, if you wouldn't mind please muting until we get to the second Q&A, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, I'm unmuted here, so thanks for showing your interest in well, what we call styrofoam recycling or polystyrene. We bill it as number 6. Usually the product will have a stamp with a triangle on it and a number 6. And another rule of thumb that I use to test whether it's recyclable or not is if it bends, it won't recycle, and if it breaks and snaps, it is. And I'm seeing this slide for the first time here. The recycled items up in the upper right-hand corner are ones that I took at Dark Container. Now that I'll say that this project is viable because we have somebody that will take the product away and they remake it into different products. They'll make picture frames, building, molding, and that kind of stuff with it, so that it's no longer in the waste stream. So I think that's the beauty. So going back to my original outline, why are we doing this? Well, it saves the earth. It saves the city landfill space. It also saves our neighbor, which is Cooper Township, who's been doing this for 5 years plus, and we're essentially emulating their program. And one of the slides back there with a garage filled with big bags of styrofoam is Cooper Township. And enough people in the City of Kalamazoo have gotten word of that, so they take a lot of their stuff out there. So we're going to relieve the burden from them. And still, I think it's just a wonderful opportunity to partake, that DART will pick this material up with no cost to us. They provide the bags that we fill, and they provide the truck that will come down and pick it up. So originally I was badgering the City of Kalamazoo to give us some warehouse space or something like that, and nothing materialized. So I was asking around at different warehouses and things like that, and we were able to get from L.C. Howard, who is a warehousing company and transportation company, the gift of a trailer that we're going to park at Mayor's Riverfront Park. It'll be permanently stationed there, and rather than having a warehouse or a garage, we will fill up the trailer, and once it's full, we call Dark Container. They come down and pick it up and empty it, and we go along to the next quarter. So originally, we're going to be doing quarterly drop-offs, and the actual key holder to this whole project will be the Environmental Concerns Committee of the city, and essentially a woman named Sharon Deaver is going to be the key holder. and she's been, I've been in contact with her today because the dates on which we do the accumulation or the drop off has been shifting around for whatever reason. Well, we didn't want to overlap with Cooper Township, and we didn't want to overlap with anything. So it looks like we're going to be doing the fourth Saturday of each month, or not of each month, but starting on April 24th, July 31st, October 30th, and January 31st of 2022. And so it'll be quarterly, and we don't know yet whether we're going to be over volumed with styrofoam or not. But anyway, we have an agreement with Cooper that will, if we have overage, we'll take some out there, and if they have overage at their place and need to fill up our trailer, we'll work with them. So that's a good deal for both operations. So really, what's involved in the work here? Because I'm hoping and asking God that He will give us dedicated workers to do this from on the fourth Saturday of quarterly, from 10 in the morning until 1 in the afternoon. And I'm confident we can find enough people to do it. And I'm estimating that we'd need four teams of 2 people each that will collect and box the materials up. 1 person that will be in the truck, so we don't have somebody jumping in and out of the truck all the time. 1 person there, and we'll be. We do have a volunteer that's going to be a quality controls person, who will say, no, that, you know, what the people are bringing in, some of it makes it, some of it doesn't. Like we had those training formats about not doing peanuts. Well, we do have people that can reuse the peanuts, and they'd be very willing to have us bag those separately and take them out to Cooper Township. They have customers that will use those. We also have people that will use the styrofoam egg cartons, who, you know, have their own chickens and will use those styrofoam egg cartons. So we don't need to throw those in the grinding bin. So, and obviously, we don't know how this is going to work in the city of Kalamazoo. I think it's going to be very bountiful, just in the estimates that I've used with, while my wife is involved in a business, and I've already got 4 cubic foot bags filled from her business, and I've got 1 in my garage, and I've got a whole roll of 4 cubic foot bags that will end up filling up. So if anybody wants to have one of those to kind of wait for that first pickup on April 24th, let me know, and I'll make sure I get that to you in one way or another. You have my name there. You don't have my email address or my cell phone number, but that would be handy. Do you have that, Joan?
There's a slide at the end that'll have your email address. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Okay. And so essentially, I'm also going to supply a box that acts as the form for the 4 cubic foot bag. And I'm going to leave those in the truck. And so that's what the 2-person teams will be throwing material in there. And then once it gets filled up, they will, 1 person will pull the box off, will twirl the top of the bag and tape it off so that it's a complete bag, and then we'll throw it into the semi-trailer and have the person in there store it. So it's kind of like I said in my original outline, it's cumbersome work. It's not very heavy. So in the means of labor, it's not too intensive, and we can probably make it fun. Do a little singing along with it, you know.
So Rick,
Anyway.
I sprang this slide a little bit on you, just so that people would have ideas about what they could do after they left today. And I know that you have talked with the folks at St. Luke's, who have a pretty good system set up for what they do in between the quarterly deliveries for drop-off. So would you maybe spend a few minutes talking about what the process might look like for a congregation to collect stuff in between?
Well, yeah. Well, St. Luke's has a woman who knows the people out at Cooper, and that's where she's been taking the stuff, the material. She stores it in her garage, and she happens to live right across the street from me, and she knows her stuff very well. So she is going to be our volunteer quality control person. She sees dirty styrofoam and she puts it in her dishwasher. It's a little extreme in my mind, but she's very committed to providing good materials for Dark Container. So, and I did get a phone call from the Dart contact that I have. I had a question in one of the pictures. It showed a little, it looked like a black meat tray that it said it was a no product. Yeah, right here. Okay, upper right, the little black meat tray with the white liner in it, and it says no. And I said, that's confusing because the lady across the street said they've been recycling those all along. So I'm trying to get some yay or nay on that, but I think we have been recycling meat trays. And I think all you would have to do on that is strip off the liner, the white liner that's on that tray, and it would be okay. The other things that we're seeing there are peanuts and insulation. And insulation has a strip on it that will not be allowed to be reground. So we can't take insulation, styrofoam insulation. But all those other components that say yes are regrindable. So any other questions?
I'd like to add to what you said, Rick, about St. Luke's.
Yes.
Because I'm from St. Luke's, and it was actually Hope for Creation that got us going.
Oh, good.
Because of Unity Church doing this already.
Okay.
But the thing that's helpful for us is that we collect second Sunday styrofoam to help everybody remember between our early morning service and our second service on Sundays. The person you're talking about, Amy, is in the parking lot with just her SUV, collecting everybody's styrofoam. And then there's a second person who has a pickup truck as backup if necessary. And then she keeps things in her garage till she can take them up to Cooper. So we'll have to figure out what to do if it's only quarterly for the city. Do you know, will it be possible for us to take styrofoam to that semi-trailer in between the quarterly dates?
Okay, I have an answer for that. I have asked, I communicate with Sharon Deaver quite a bit just to get this ball rolling. And I have asked them, the city is going to buy the padlock for the trailer, and I have asked them to trust me enough to give me a key, and also to send a key to the driver at Dark Container up in Mason so that he will have a key and we won't have to personally be on site when they unload everything. But if I have a key, then I can be kind of a intermediate accumulation person. And if you contact me, I could take it over there and put the bags in the trailer unbeknownst, or, you know, at various times. And I'm hoping that will happen, but we'll see. And then another thing that I've done at our church is I've allotted a couple of garbage bins as a drop off at our church. If people are coming to church and want to drop it off, we've got a couple of garbage bins that I can take from also. And I currently have a full bag in my garage. I'm ready to drop off. So we need to get this done. And then also, I want to give a thumbs up and a thank you to Elsie Howard for gifting us this trailer, because otherwise we wouldn't have the possibility of this happening. Yeah.
Great.
So.
Thank you. Is there another question?
Yes, this is Marty from Prince of Peace again. So do I understand that either as an individual household, I can bring my Styrofoam to the quarterly drop off at the trailer, or if my congregation chooses to participate in being a drop off place, I can take it there, whatever they arrange, and then they'll bring it to the trailer on trailer day. But we aren't going to package it into the special bags. We package it into whatever we have at home. Then when we get to the drop off, it will get repackaged. Or can the churches have the final product packaging and have a team that brings it all ready to the trailer?
Answer to that would be yes. I mean, I did offer, I have this roll of the 4 cubic foot bags in my garage, and I could offer one of those to you. And I found that a cardboard box is a good liner for those. So I have a cardboard box that's about 4 cubic foot, and it works very well. And I got the idea from seeing when I went up to pick up the bags at Dark Container, that's what they use in their warehouse. I thought, well, that makes sense. If you see the picture at Cooper, they have a 2x4 box that you have to kind of unpin to open it up. And a cardboard box, all you have to do is tip it over and pull the bag out, and it makes it very easy. It's more lightweight. But yes, the answer, Marty, is yeah, I can get you a bag and possibly a box if you want one. If you have the space to store it, that's a definite possibility.
So Rick, thank you so very much. It's really wonderful. I know how long you and others have been engaged in the slow, steady prodding and encouraging of the city to move this forward. So I know we all join you in appreciating your efforts. I think it'll be fun once this is up and running and people can come to the trailer on those dates that you listed. Certainly they'll be able to then pick up a new bag when they're dropping off their full bag, and it'll start to become a cycle that people have what they need. So yeah. I wanted to make sure that people knew that there are specific congregations whose members are engaged in Hope for Creation, and we would welcome participation by any additional congregations that are on the call today. And I'm saying that partly because as we grow this network out, you will also have the opportunity to learn about efforts like the Styrofoam polystyrene recycling effort, like the EV charging station. Hope for Creation has a number of other pieces of work that it's engaged in, and we would invite you to join us by sending us your email address or contacting one of us so that we can help get you engaged in some of the other things that we're doing as well. Rick.
I also want to refine my ask of you people that are watching here today, that if you are interested in working the station, let me know that the people out at Cooper are pretty adamant about not having too many workers around. And I kind of had envisioned about anywhere from 8 to 10 volunteers, and that if you did it once a year, that should suffice. But we don't know yet because we haven't even done it yet. But let me know via email if you're interested, and I think we'll cut it off at about 10 people. But let me know if you're interested. That'd be great.
Thank you, Rick. I'm going to put your email address back up on the screen, and I'm going to open it back up for the last few minutes we have together. If people have questions for either one of our two speakers, you can unmute yourself and just let us know which person you're asking the question of, and we will stay for a few more minutes and try to get you the information you need. Or maybe we've answered everyone's questions.
Yeah. Well, I have to admit, it's not going to be rocket science for this, but I want to also say that I've been reading quite a bit about, to kind of go back to Steve's subject, I've been reading a lot about electric vehicles, and that battery capabilities are improving, and that General Motors has made a large commitment to EVs, electric vehicles, and it's going to be the wave of the future. So I'm ready, and I think it's very timely that Steve gave us a really good picture of what we're going to be doing. Going to be driving those electric vehicles, and then also I read something about the idea of I don't know if you've read anything about this, Steve, TSSA, transportation, or TAAS, transportation as a service, that self-driving vehicles, it'll end up being more cost effective because you can subscribe to your transportation service and not even have to own a car. You can, it's a new wrinkle in living, you know? So I think it'll be great. Change is.
Yeah, especially these days.
Yep.
I have to make up excuses to drive my zippy fun car because
Right.
I don't go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah.
Let's save the earth. It's our next big job.
I have one more question for Steve. Does anyone, or maybe for everybody, does anyone have any ideas if you were, say, to open this to the public, like what people are going to do for the hour or two they're sitting there? Or, I mean, people need to spend quite a bit of time, right? Or do they sit in their cars while this is happening?
I think you probably see all kinds of behavior across the entire gamut. I think it depends on where the charger is. I think for the churches that are downtown, I can imagine people going to a movie or going to the library or going out for dinner or something like that. But you know, it really depends on the location and what the opportunities are. And that's something that each house of worship is going to have to decide on their own what makes the most sense in terms of whether it's opened up to the entire public or whether it's opened up just to members of your organization or what. So you know, I think well, Paul has done some cross-country driving, and he can tell you what he does when he stops for charging.
On my route, typically the fast chargers are at Walmarts.
So you sit in your car?
No. I go to the restroom at Walmart or the adjacent fast food place.
Cool.
But the fast charging on road trips is a whole different scenario. For a location like a house of worship, the typical use would be for somebody in your congregation or an employee who's going to be there for a while, naturally doing something there.
Steve, this is Doug McLaughlin. I'm with the Bridge Church in Portage, and I'm wondering, the last question just triggered a thought in my head that I hadn't really thought about before, which is opportunities for a church to sponsor or, you know, set up a station somewhere else with an agreement with, you know, a different property owner or something like that. You know, for example, helping to set up a station near hiking trails or you know, downtown, where when your vehicle's being charged, you've got other things that you can do.
Yeah. So certainly we can advocate. I mean, someone has to agree to hook these things up to their meter. So we can certainly advocate, you know, communicate and answer questions if we identify a location and a potential owner that we think might be receptive.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
an interesting idea, Doug. Do you have a place in mind?
I don't. As I said, I hadn't really thought about this before, but the question, you know, the bridge is in a location that is pretty residential. You know, if you were to come there and you weren't somebody, you know, a staff person, for example, staying at the church, or weren't planning to be at the church, if you were, you know, there isn't a whole heck of a lot else to do. So maybe the bridge would be interested in supporting the effort, but maybe through an agreement so that it could be at a different location. And then there might be a sign or something that said the station sponsored by the bridge or what have you, but I don't have anything specific in mind. But
you certainly could contact one of the downtown churches and say, well, you know, we'll pay for another 2 lines.
Right.
Because you get, you know, if you put in 2 lines, you get one $5,000 rebate. If you put in 4 lines, you get 2 $5,000 rebates. So, you know, if they've got the space to install more lines, that's one possible kind of collaboration. They've got the space and you've got the resources, or, you know.
Steve, is the rebate limited to just houses of worship, or is that a general?
Yeah, that the houses of worship was my idea.
Okay.
You know, they are trying to get these out into residential and commercial properties. So mostly they've been targeting so far businesses. And I thought that it would be a perfect opportunity for churches to show their commitment. And so far, I've learned that at least in Michigan, there was one church that submitted an application, but then ultimately decided not to install. So far, no house of worship in Michigan has taken advantage of this rebate.
And this rebate is only Michigan,
right.
This particular program. So
this would be, you know, if we could get 10 houses of worship in Kalamazoo to do this, I mean, I think we could get a lot of airtime. I think we can get a lot of exposure for Kalamazoo and for the idea that faith communities can play a major role in climate action.
Is Consumers offering some consulting support on this, or are they just kind of, you're on your own and apply for the rebate?
Yeah, pretty much that. They did hook us up with the NLX partner who will give you estimates and suggestions for installation. But I mean, you know, Paul and I are consultants now.
And the company selling the hardware will help also to an extent. But the actual hardware is pretty simple.
So
Right.
go ahead.
Yeah, the hardware really, it's mostly a communication between the box and the car to make sure that this high power energy throughput doesn't do damage. So the actual charging is done by units that are in the car for these level 2 chargers. So there's not there are no moving parts, and there's no hazardous material. It's mostly communication, and I guess some relays to turn power on and off.
Also, Steve, did you say that you would, if we put you in contact with our property people that would be making the decision at our congregation, would you do the presentation, or can I use your PowerPoint to do that?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do it, or you could do it, either way.
Okay.
For sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, Toby.
Steve, your idea of downtown churches having a way to charge the public while they go out to dinner, go to the library, or in St. Luke's case, the Civic Theater right next door and the KIA, that intrigues me. What sort of charge is there for using an electric charger?
Well, that's up to the owner of the charger, right?
But what's the standard for places where it's charged, where people pay?
Chargers of this type exist downtown, and they're free to use at this point in time.
Okay.
Where are they, Paul?
There's one in that parking garage that's there's two in the parking garage that was close to the movie theater on Portage. And of course, I'm also counting our campus, Western Michigan University. We have several of the level 2 units, and it hasn't, in our experience, it's not worth it to charge for the electricity because the electricity is so inexpensive, relatively inexpensive.
But you can, you can expect, depending on how discharged your battery is. Let's say you're at half charge, you can expect to pay maybe $5 to charge it up.
If you're willing to spend that much time,
right?
If you're only spending an hour or so there, you can't use that much electricity.
So I'm just going to jump in for a minute, being mindful that we have spent our hour together, and we can keep the Zoom open for people to continue talking for a few more minutes. But while I still have folks here, I just want to make sure that we thank Steve and Rick both for the time and energy that they put into their presentations today. Really helpful information. We're so grateful for all the work that you are doing and will continue to do to make opportunities for our congregations to become more actively engaged in caring for creation. On that note, I want to also make sure that everybody's aware that this is a monthly opportunity, and on March 11th at this same time, we will come back together to offer congregations the opportunity to learn about worship resources and ideas for how to make Earth Day a central part of your April congregational life. There is a week called Faith Climate Action Week that we will be providing resources to congregations that want to participate, everything from sample sermons to bulletin inserts to activities that you can do probably remotely. But we just want to make sure people have the resources they need to really lift up the idea of creation care in their congregations during Earth Week this year. So I hope you'll come back and join us next month, and or send along somebody from your congregation who'd be the person who could make those kinds of things happen. And with that, again, we're on Facebook. We have a YouTube channel where you can see the past recordings of some of these earlier monthly Green Team events. We're very grateful to have you here. We're always looking for more individuals and congregations to join us. And with that, we'll close the official part of the program, but please do stay and ask questions. I don't know how long Rick and Steve can stay, but we'll keep this open for a few more minutes if you still have questions. Thanks again for coming.
I have a question for Rick.
Yes.
Okay, I'm Mary Cordier. I live at Friendship Village.
Yes.
And we are not a congregation. However, we are part of this group. The procedure for getting into the Styrofoam. First, I want to say thank you to both of you. Gee whiz, I've learned a lot this afternoon. Thank you. But anyway, the procedure on the Styrofoam for this sort of facility would be to collect. We have over 200 residents. I know we have Styrofoam. We bag it here. Would we get the 4 cubic foot bags from you to bag it? Then how do we get the bags to Cooper? And what are the dates that they should be there?
Well, okay, so the city is going to tell us the dates in their, they do a quarterly, I think it is, mailing called The View from the Curb.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Okay, and so they're about ready to print that right now with those dates that I gave you, which are going to start on April 24th. And obviously that's way longer than we had hoped, but it's what's going to happen because they're going to print it. April 24th, July 31st, October 30th, and January 31st of next year are the quarterly dates. I was thinking about getting you one of our boxes to put the 4x4x4 bag in if you have the space for it.
Okay,
I'm not sure who, and there was some discussion with Nancy Apple going with some people that you know out there, but she said that they had decided not to use Styrofoam anymore out there, but still yes. People are gonna.
Yeah, we're working with Ryan Sweeney, who is the head of our culinary, and they are eliminating Styrofoam as much as possible through the kitchen. Currently, they're still delivering our meals to our room, but starting on Monday, we will be able to have our dinners in the dining room. Hooray, hooray, which means we will not need Styrofoam containers for at least not very much Styrofoam to deliver meals. So, yeah. but anyway, okay, so we need a space for a 4x4 by cubic foot box. And then we would work out a way to, excuse me just a minute, come in. So,
Mary,
speaking of delivering of meals, my dinner just came, but anyway.
Question for you is, who would I contact to drop that off?
Drop off the box? I think Brandon Pierce. I can send you his email or a phone number, Rick.
Okay.
Okay. I'm pretty sure it's Brandon because he's head of the facilities here.
Okay.
And so finding a box for that, and then we would internally set up a process for collecting the Styrofoam. Okay. Yeah. All right. And they were sort of aiming then at somehow getting the box or getting the bags, whatever, to Comstock for the April 24th.
Mayor's Riverfront Park, which is essentially downtown, where the baseball field is.
Okay.
Toby?
I'm wondering, while she's thinking of, if every time you give a bag to any congregation or organization, you can give that great how to reduce your use of styrofoam. I loved the handout you created. Thank you so much. And of course, I know you're going to give what the yes and the no styrofoam sign. If everybody could have that to go with their bag, however they set that up, that would help a lot.
That would help us a lot to have for every resident a list of this stuff is okay. No,
Yeah.
don't put this stuff in. We've set up a recycling program here and it's going pretty well, but we still have people sticking styrofoam in with paper products and other stuff that shouldn't be recycled. But we're working on it, and it's we're getting it's working quite well. So
You know, I would really suggest that whatever organization you use, that you have a team that monitors it and maybe collect the styrofoam in some other container, and then your pros go through and transfer it to the specialized bags, rather than relying on people to learn all the, I mean, still share the rules, but I mean, we don't want the project to fail because we didn't have strong enough quality control. And if Rick could trust that everything that came from a church or any of the locations he's coordinated with is pure, because he's got team leaders that are monitoring it, then it doesn't have to all be resorted when it gets to the site again.
very good. Thank you.
Yeah, a little of that when we're collecting out of people's cars when they drop it off is incumbent upon us as volunteers to ferret out what is acceptable and what isn't, and be courageous enough to give bad news about, no, I'm sorry, you're going to have to take that back home with you, you know, when it doesn't meet specifications. So, which is kind of a tough thing to do, but it's not going to be a garbage site down there. It's going to be a recycling site.
Very good. Thank you.
Well,
We have a little newsletter article we put before Second Sunday, Styrofoam Sunday, in the weekly newsletter, what the yeses and the nos are in our newsletter.
The pictures that Joan showed, I have those. They're just PDFs, and I could email those to anybody.
When we will, Hope for Creation will also provide the template that has both the reduction steps and the what's okay and what's not. So watch for that. That'll be something that we'll be able to make available broadly.
Great.
I think a good goal would be to have it ready by next month's Green Team event. So as we're sharing other things that congregations can share for Earth Week, since the first pickup is Earth Week, that works out really well, actually. So, very cool. Well, again, I want to thank you all so much for being here. It's been delightful to see all of your faces and a lot of expertise and commitment and faith in this group. So thanks again for joining us. And feel free to follow up using the email addresses that were in the presentation, and or I'll send out a quick email to everybody who was here today with the slide link and the ways to contact us. So again, thanks very much and have a good evening.